The Duke of York's lawyers submitted an 11-page document to the court. He's issued 41 denials, rejecting all allegations of wrongdoing, but he said a further 40 times he lacks sufficient information to admit or deny other claims. And he's also submitted 11 defences calling for the case to be dismissed, including saying that Virginia should be barred from the claim because of her own wrongful conduct and unclean hands. That's what he says. Let's just have a look at what we've seen. So the documents come out. It's Andrews. I won't call it a defence, but it's his response. It's the kind of thing he would say in court in front of a jury if he gets that chance. We'll call it Prince Andrew's defence. But there are holes here. So on these key points in orange, he says, I don't have the information. And when you look at them, you start to think, well, say what? I don't have the information to say whether or not the famous photo of me and Virginia even exists. Well, everyone's seen it, Andrew. I don't have the information to say whether I sent an email to Ghislaine about Virginia Giuffre. There is an email in existence. Maybe he can't remember it. Maybe it's a fake. I don't know. He says, I don't have the information to say whether I invited Epstein to Beatrice's 18th 1 month after he'd been charged. This is the key thing. This walk in the park was after we knew there was this cloud over Epstein, after we knew he was facing and going through and conviction for paedophile offences. So he says, I don't have the information to say whether or not Epstein was a registered sex offender when I went to see him in New York in 2010. He was inside his flat. And again, it's a matter of fact, this. I don't have the information to say whether or not I've been pictured at many social events with Ghislaine. Well, on that, there is no doubt. You have been pictured at many social events with Ghislaine, mate. Isn't that right, Dawn?
Yes. I mean, look, my gut reaction with this, when I heard this morning that he wanted to go for trial by jury, it was like, wow, it's going to be the trial of the century if it goes ahead for a start. I mean, how can you not be fascinated by the whole thing, as hideous as it is? But my gut reaction, Jeremy, was that I don't think he's got any choice. I really don't think he's got any choice now, because I'm sure the Queen and the rest of the royal family would much rather him settle and make it go away, especially in her Jubilee year. However, if he does that, he's always going to have this hanging over him. There is always going to be, well, you only paid Virginia off because you have got something to hide.
But his reputation is destroyed forever anyway, isn't it, Kevin? He just needs to put his car in reverse gear and just screech out of this. And it's interesting. I don't know. Do you think he should pay her off in that phrase?
Well, it depends on guilt. Even if you pay somebody off in a civil case and you say no liability is accepted, I'd like to see him take the stand. It's a civil case, so he won't be manacled in an orange jumpsuit. But I'd like to see him answer the questions. He'd probably start sweating if Virginia Giuffre's team gets Emily Maitlis to ask the questions. We saw what happened at Newsnight.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, is that good advice? You'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. Well, we're journalists. Is that good advice for him, though?
I'm very suspicious, right? He tried to use a grubby deal between his paedophile friend, now dead, Jeffrey Epstein, with Virginia Giuffre, then Roberts, when there was a settlement, $500,000. They tried to hide behind that to stop any hearing going ahead. He got attacked for that. He's changed tactics. He now wants to say, look, I'm open, I'm innocent, I want everything in public. That doesn't mean there may not be work to get a deal behind the scenes.
Let me just, of course, that would require her saying, I'll give up my day in court, and I'm not sure she's that person. Let's just have a look. The two key photos at the centre of this. Well, we'll leave aside the one with him and Epstein in the park, but this is obviously the photo. His friends have said that hand has been inserted, photoshopped, but actually you don't hear anyone claiming that now. So I think that must be a real photo. The other key photo is after Epstein was convicted, he walked in the park with him and he stayed with him. And this is to me, this photo's worse because that's in Epstein's house. He's saying goodbye to a young girl. And he says he went there because he needed to break off the friendship, Dawn.
That's not the brightest thing to do, is it? But I think we have to accept with Andrew that he really isn't the sharpest tool in the royal box. And there's quite a bit of competition, I think, personally, on that one as well. I think Andrew's main problem is the incredible arrogance that his incredibly privileged lifestyle has given him. He seriously thinks that the interview he did with Emily Maitlis was a success. Now, how anyone can think that after the fallout from it and even watching it back is, but it's the sheer arrogance. And you know, I'm Prince Andrew. I mean, my favourite Meatloaf story was when he, you know, Meatloaf said something cheeky to him, and he goes, "But you can't say that to me. I'm Prince Andrew." And Meatloaf quite rightly said, "I don't give a who you are."
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great story. But I mean, but Prince Andrew just has this birthright of arrogance and privilege, and he thinks he can do no wrong.
But then in that case, you wouldn't put him in front of a jury
I
because they're going to
wouldn't,
see through him.
But
If you're his legal team, and legal teams make assessments of how they think people would perform, I would reckon his legal team would be thinking, we do not want this man to be questioned. But you know, that picture of three people there is pictured with a sex-trafficked woman, young woman, and he's with a woman who's been convicted of sex trafficking. He doesn't know his good friend Ghislaine Maxwell now, who he invited to Windsor Castle for a party and a shooting weekend in Sandringham.
They were pictured in the garden. I mean, how
The
often?
may or
photo
may
may have
not
been
have
taken
been-
by Epstein himself, which is that you're then in the company of somebody who was convicted as well.
Why else? I think you're right. That picture of him at the house, Epstein's house, after Epstein has been shown to be a convicted sex offender. Why else might someone go? Could they go to enjoy dubious hospitality, check what information might be on them, what might come out, just to be worried rather than being very honourable to somebody?
I'm trying to work out whether, when he says I would face the jury, whether he means actually going there. Because there is a thought that if he sets foot in America, he's not actually going to ever leave that country.
Well, the FBI want to speak to him.
Well, yes.
And they wanted to speak to him as a witness, and he said he would cooperate fully, and he hasn't.
And he
as far
hasn't
as we
done.
know.
No.
And I'm hearing from the producer that he said that his friends say he's expecting to have to give 7 hours of evidence.
Wow.
Now, that would mean, I suppose it could be like one of these depositions where you sit in a room and you're videoed. That seems to happen a lot in the States, doesn't it?
In 7 hours in a one hour, or
Yes, so you sit down and they go through every single thing. Do you remember this photo? Where were you on the night? Now, the idea, I don't know where the bar is in Tramps. All the stuff that came out in the Mateless interview, they'll go over again and again.
The amazing thing, I know he's very privileged and sort of like getting on private jets and going to private islands is not like it would be for the rest of us. But he goes, I have no recollection, paraphrasing what he actually said in his statements, but I don't remember going to that private island on that private jet. And it's like, how can you forget that? With a security detail, because you remember the royal family. You're going to have a security detail. How does that slip your mind?
We should think about the Queen in this. Apparently he's her favourite. And I just feel for her.
Yeah.
She can't change who her sons are.
No.
And I'm sure she's very, if you're the mother, you're very uncomfortable in this territory of your child's sexual activity. It's not a place a parent ever wants to go to.
Yeah.
So you probably, and she's old-fashioned, she's 95, you probably blanket a bit, don't you?
You know what, and I think it probably did break her heart, when she had to strip him of his royal title. It's not his royalty, he's still HRH, but he's just not meant to use it, and all the military roles that he had. And I don't think in her heart she wanted to do that. I think it's probably more Charles and William that were saying this has to happen.
Yeah, but then in the end she's the Queen, and she has, the one place she's got power is inside that palace.